Hey there, so this is week 2 of a set of tutorials on how to perform tangles. Last week we played around with air wraps, these funky almost 2-beat weave-like tangles that happen in a little almost bowl that you create between your arms. This week we are going to talk about hyperloops, which are a lot like air wraps except that you get to switch which side of your body you're working on. You could almost think of them as being very similar to a weave, except one that was performed as a tangle instead of at your arms, right? So, let's break this down. How exactly does a hyperloop work? Well, first a word of warning. Despite what you see right here, I actually think contact poi are incredibly difficult to learn how to do hyperloops on. If you can use a set of socks for this, that will be much preferable because you're going to tangle a lot as you're learning these things. And one of the things you'll discover is that when there's a knot in the line, the knot will continue to move its way down the line until it reaches the first thing that is thicker than the line. And in the case of contact poi, that means you're going to get a lot of really complex knots right at the heads. Whereas if you use a pair of sock poi, you've got a decent chance that it'll slip right past the head. That won't always be the case, but you've got better odds than with these. So, to begin, we're going to break this down in a very similar way to how we broke down the air wraps. Namely, we're going to do this kind of with one poi head in one hand, so you can kind of understand the basic mechanism of what's going on. Just like we did last time, I'm going to play this from a place where my poi head is rotating around clockwise because that is my dominant direction. And in that case, it's going to be my left hand that's reaching over my right hand poi to kind of capture it in the tangle. Now, last week we played around with the idea that once it captures the poi, it pulls it almost through your armpit to push it back out on the same side of your body, right? We're going to do something a little different today. Today, instead of pulling it through your armpit to push it back to that same side of your body, we're instead going to turn a little bit right after your hand catches it. So you're actually going to wind up in this position over here wherein the poi tether is kind of hanging over your wrist. And I'll do this straight at you so you can see the mechanism of what's going on here. We catch it, we bring it between our arms like so. We've now moved that kind of bowl that we've created with our arms such that it's put the poi into buzzsaw plane instead of wall plane directly in front of us. And we've created this moment where our right hand is further away from our body than our left hand is, and the poi tether is hanging over the backside of your left hand. Now, when you turn over to your right side, you're going to push with your left wrist, and that's going to get your poi head back in motion. So again, you're going to reach in from over, pull it through to this point where your right hand is in front of you, and your left hand is closer to your body, and the poi tether is draped over your arm like so. And then you're going to push with your left wrist until the right hand comes back out. When you do this in a more continuous fashion, it looks like this. Whoops. At least it should most of the time. All right. Now we're going to deal with what happens with the left hand in this because it's slightly more complicated. In this particular case, we're going to have the right hand be poiless and the left hand have the poi rotating in it. And the left hand poi is going to reach over your right wrist. And it's going to do so with enough momentum that the poi head is actually going to go through this hollow that you've just created between your arms and come right back out. Your arm is going to kind of follow it through such that you wind up with your right hand further away from you, your left hand closer, and the poi is draped over your right wrist, right? And then as you make the turn over here, once again, you're going to actually pick your left hand poi off of your right hand wrist. Your right hand wrist doesn't launch it. You're going to pull it off with your left hand, yeah? As seen from head on, this is what this looks like. So we go over, the poi head comes through, and you wind up with it draped over your arm. You come on over to your right side, and you pick it back off. So, like that, and then like that. When you do it as one smooth continuous motion, this is what it looks like. You'll note that the second time, so when my poi head comes through my arms right here, my next move is to get it oriented on the side of my arm such that when I get it rotating again, it is flush with the side of my body back in wheel play. Like so. Yeah? So, then it's time to actually put the two poi together. In terms of getting into this, it happens at a very similar kind of place to an air rack wherein the two poi planes are at an angle from each other. The way I usually like getting into this is to have my left side poi plane angled straight up in wall plane, so it's flush with me. And then my right side, my right hand poi plane is slightly at an angle to that. So it's more like the top corner of a parallelogram than it is the top of a diamond, like that, right? In terms of going through this piece by piece, and bear in mind there is absolutely no way to get it down aside from just to practice it. We can take this piece by piece in slow-mo so you can see what happens with your two poi here, which is, if you remember last week we talked about as soon as the poi heads cross over each other, you kind of catch the right hand poi in your right hand and your left hand poi in your left hand, and you'll see that this creates a situation where they're interlocked with each other. You're then going to bring them between your arms and you're going to reverse which hand is holding which poi. You push them around forward in order to do that. And now I've wound up in this lovely situation where my tethers are parallel. My right hand is holding my left poi head, my left hand is holding my right poi head. And then when I move it over to the other side of my body, I'm going to push my right hand poi out, and they should just automatically come untangled. If you look at this from the front, it looks like this. I catch right hand poi head in my right hand, left hand poi head in my left hand. Whoops. We're just going to pretend I made the catch all right. Switch which hand they're in, and then move them to the side of my body, and I'm going to get my right hand poi moving once again, and they should automatically come entangled. One last time. Catch the right poi head and left poi head in the appropriate hands. Switch them around. Bring them over to the side of you. Set the right head moving, and they should just unwrap naturally. You got to get your left poi head out of the way once the right hand poi starts moving, by the way, otherwise they tend to tangle up again. And once you've gotten that far, it's literally just a matter of practicing it, practicing it, practicing it. When I first was learning this move, the hardest part for me was once I got, well, two things that were hard for me. One was realizing that as I got into the tangle, I had to keep my hands at the same height the whole way through. I really badly wanted to raise my left hand up as I was going through it, which inevitably meant that I had awful tangles. In order to make this happen, you have to almost imagine that your hand is on top of a tabletop, and it's not allowed to go up or down in the course of doing this move. They have to stay at the same height. The other thing that was really difficult was when exiting, I would consistently hit my right hand poi against my right hand as it was going on its way out, and it led to horrible, horrible knots like that. The best way I can describe to kind of fix that is actually to almost cock out your right elbow just a little bit as you're going through that position, and it'll help you make some of the reach. Not always. Quite frankly, the other thing that just helps is tons of practice. Cool. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Next week we're going to talk about orbitals, which thankfully are just a hop, skip, and a jump away from hyperloops. You're not going to have to learn that much new in order to get there. So thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great week, and I will see you guys next Friday. Peace.